All right, hello everybody. Thanks for joining this year's DDes conference. We're going to start off with, can we go to the next slide? We're going to start off with our land acknowledgement. So Harvard University is located on the traditional and ancestral land of the Massachusetts, the original inhabitants of what is now known as Boston and Cambridge. We pay respect to the people of the Massachusetts tribe, past and present, and honor the land itself, which remains sacred to the Massachusetts people. So we have a full program today and a lot of speakers who are joining us from both Harvard, elsewhere in Cambridge, as well as joining us internationally. So a lot of great people who are going to be talking today. So we will start out with opening remarks with Peter Galison, introduced by Martin Bechthold. And we've structured today's conference around 3 different panels throughout the day. So at 10:15, we'll have our first panel, The Uncanny Valley. And then afterwards, we will have a workshop with Farzin Lofty Jam. Please make sure to join for that after lunch. We'll have our other 2 panels, Natures of Sensing and Exposure afterwards, with a keynote at 5 by Daniel. We'll also have a reception at 6 for everybody who's participating. Please make sure to join us in room 123. We'll also want to invite you to join us for upcoming GSD public programs. So on October 7th and 8th, Chicago-born architect and professor Jermaine Barnes explores the connections between identity and the built environment. Barnes uses research, design, and speculation to mine the social and political agency of architecture and uncover spatial histories, presence, and futures of Black self-determination. The next day, Barnes will reflect on his research in conversation with members of the jury of the 2021 Wheelwright Prize, David Brown, David Hart, Mark Lee, Megan Pinzano, and Samaya Valley. I'll hand it over to my co-organizer, Annie, to give our thanks to everybody who helped.
So many of you are likely familiar with the Borges short story on exactitude in science, in which he describes an empire with cartography so precise that its map becomes the same scale as the empire itself. It's illuminated for me a lot of the themes that we'll sort of drift through together today, but I reference it now because while I would like to detail the contributions of everybody who has helped make this day possible with the precision that they are due, I worry that I would then end up duplicating or eclipsing the conference itself. So here goes our approximations. Thank you to all of our interlocutors who made their journey to Harvard today, and thank you to our moderators and speakers from Harvard for joining us. Vijay Rajkumar generously contributed the original score that we have the pleasure of listening to in between events, much of which was sampled from MIT's Tidmarsh site, a site that we'll be hearing about soon. The artist Luca Carter made with joy and care the drawings you'll see on the screen and on our posters. Also, many thanks are due to Matt, the GSD's Assistant Director of Multimedia Production. We also want to thank the Weatherhead Center, the GSD Dean's Office, the Public Programs and Event staff, and the Doctor of Design program for funding today's conference. Finally, while it may appear that Tom, Joe, and I are up here running the show, Melissa, Margaret, and Liz in the ASP office are really the ones who make events like this possible. I can't thank them enough. Ali, unfortunately, cannot join us today, but he deserves special thanks. As director of the DDes program, he's been a real guide through the last year as we've put together this conference. I'm personally so grateful for his advice, support, and friendship. So I suppose now we should go ahead and get started. I'm going to hand the mic at the podium over to Martin Bechthold. Martin, thank you so much for doing this on such short notice. Martin is a professor of architectural technology in the GSD's Department of Architecture, and he's graciously offered to formally open today's event.
Thank you, and I promise you this is the last introduction, then we are going to get started. So very happy to be here. I also happen to be a graduate from the program in a year too long ago to actually mention it out loud, so I'll skip that part. The Doctor of Design program was established in 1985. It was a pioneering professional doctorate in architecture, landscape architecture, urban design and planning. Since its inception, more than 260 graduates have contributed groundbreaking research, expanding knowledge across these disciplines. Today, the DDes program continues to thrive and embraces a broad and interdisciplinary approach that mirrors the diverse backgrounds of the students and its faculty. Each year, the DDes students are invited to propose a conference And a small group of students then selected to actually organize and run this event, hence we have this wonderful occasion today. These conferences have been held for at least 10 years, and they explore ideas on a wide range of thought-provoking subjects. Today's RealTimeNature conference, very thoughtfully conceived and curated by Annie Simpson, Joe Kennedy, and Tom Sterling, brings together a diverse group of thinkers to examine the opportunities and challenges posed by technological advancements such as simulation and remote sensing, seen through a philosophical and theoretical lens. To kick off the event, it's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Peter Galison, the Joseph Pellegrino University Professor of the History of Science and Physics at Harvard University. Professor Galison also serves as the director of the Black Hole Initiative, the first worldwide center dedicated to the study of black holes. A true Renaissance man, both in writing and film, he explores the complex interaction between the three principal subcultures of physics: experimentation, instrumentation, and theory, and the embedding of physics in the wider world. His contributions and achievements are extensive. He has authored several influential books, including How Experiments End, Image and Logic, A Material Culture of Microphysics, and Einstein's Clocks. He has also been involved in the production of several notable films, including Ultimate Weapon, The H-Bomb Dilemma, which deals with the moral political debates over the H-bomb, and Secrecy, a documentary that he directed with Rob Moss about national security, secrecy, and democratic transparency. Throughout his distinguished career, Professor Galison has received numerous awards and honors, including the prestigious John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Fellowship and the Pfizer Award. He was also awarded the Pius Prize for the American Physical Society. More recently, as a member of the Event Horizon Telescope collaboration, Professor Galison shared in the 2020 Breakthrough Prize in Fundamental Physics for the capture of the first ever image of a black hole. So again, welcome to Piper this morning, welcome on Zoom, and now with great pleasure, no further delay, please join me in warmly welcoming Professor Peter Galison.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Annie. Thank you to all the organizers. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to talk today about contested visibilities, the idea of real-time nature, and what it means to capture the Anthropocenic, which would like an O, Pocenic spew. Begin because the topic today does involve, or it was launched by attention to birds. The oiled shorebirds throughout the last many decades has become a symbol and sign of a destruction of the environment by oil spills, both on the ocean floor and in ships that have foundered. You can see it in the 1969 in the Santa Barbara oil spill, in the 2010 Deepwater Horizon spill, in the Refugio oil spill in 2015. In fact, if you look up under Getty Images, there are 7,481 stock photos of oiled birds to choose from. Oiled birds throughout the history of art and literature have symbolized a kind of loss, regret, a canceled and removed innocence, and they function that way in the photographic annals as well. But I'm not so much interested in those. The work that Caroline Jones and I have pursued in a book we've just finished called Invisibilities regards a very different kind of image, not polar bears lonely and stranded on icebergs, but a new kind of image. New image makers where citizens, states, NGOs, surveillance video, shareable images of the Anthropocenic drivers come into play and have a profound effect. They're new image forms. They are time-based, but they're not story-based. They're not art. They're not character-driven. They don't come to a resolution that brings to rest the tension established in the opening. They come with novel technologies, and we'll talk about those: infrared photography, satellite photography, new forms of platform and uploading and downloading and streaming, And then there are new forms of circulation from TV to platforms, and the contestation between visibilization and invisibilization, which saturates this history. It's always a struggle between those wanting to share images and those wanting to block them. The main focus, and I'll discuss here, and we in the book, are these VOOTs, these viral, ongoing, operative, time-based images. They're clips. There's, in a sense, nothing's happening and everything's happening. They borrow from tropes in the history of art and structure, of volcano imagery, of many other forms of imagery. But they're time-based. They are movies in there in the sense that they evolve over time, but they're recurrent. What they show is the constancy of the production of oil in the top, methane in the middle, the huge leak in Los Angeles that I'll discuss, and ground, these huge CAFOs, the concentrated animal feeding operations, which dominates the production of meat both in the United States and increasingly around the world. This is a lagoon, called a lagoon. It's a cesspit where waste is producing fecal matter, gas, viruses, bacteria, and leaking into the water supply more generally. So I begin with water, or underwater. The Deepwater Horizon calamity of 2010, which killed many workers and contaminated a huge portion of the Gulf, is known through images like this one, the actual moment of disaster. It's also seen in these sort of technological sublime images like this that carry over from a kind of awestruck relationship that it puts the viewer in towards this aerial photograph of the oil spill that's caught with a kind of frightening beauty, but in a sense also diminishes our awareness, our sensing of what effect it has on wildlife, on fish, on ocean-going mammals, and so on, and the people that live all along the coast of the Gulf Coast, the fishing industry, for instance. So those images that we came to know in 2010 and in the years following were recorded by remote operated vehicles that were on and around the ocean floor for the maintenance and servicing of the Deepwater Horizon operations. They were never designed for the monitoring of a leak. They were designed to repair and monitor what was going on in normal or only slightly deviating from normal circumstances. And what the companies that were running this, BP in particular, tried very hard to block these images from being released. And it was only after a big congressional battle that they were released. When they were put on the congressional server, demand from around the world was so great that it crashed the entire server system of the US Congress. And immediately, just from these images, when they're moving, you could actually begin to estimate how much oil was being dumped in the Gulf. So they played both a public and political role, which had big effects on national politics and regulation. This was when people got involved with this, when they began to see these images, but it also had a scientific environmental sensing role as people began to use these particle tracing techniques, particle velocities, and you could take a feature in the spew and trace it over time, and then estimate the volume of oil that was being put into the Gulf. This was crucial both to reckon with the amplitude of the disaster, but also in court cases to assess damages and fines that BP would suffer. So when BP is struggling not to release the amount or to minimize it, it's also a matter of deep financial concern. It's not just a public relations issue. So the images began to look like this, and it was these kind of images that were taken up by a variety of scientists who had used these particle velocity estimators to begin to try to estimate both the amount that was being spewed and the ratio of methane and oil. They have different colors, and there were debates about features. I mean, so it becomes quite an elaborated technical question to make these estimates. And then over time, you know, by a decade later, people began to make a different kind of video or moving image. Again, this one did not achieve the kind of ubiquity of the ones that I just mentioned. But here you can see through sampling at different places and then modeling it in a simulation how the currents of the Gulf begin to move the oil. And in fact, you know, in more extended versions of this, you can see it going between Cuba and Florida and up the east coast of Florida. So it had a huge effect on the biotic structure of the Gulf. You know, a huge a sea. I mean, this begins to take on global proportions. I now turn to the air, and here the focus is on Los Angeles, where in the Aliso Canyon, on that hill that you see in the background near a upper middle class development gated community called Porter Ranch, on October 15th, 2015, people began to smell gas. And you can see the infrastructure up on the hill in the inset here. This is Porter Ranch. Matt Pacuco and his wife lived in this, where that arrow is pointing, and you can see it on the map more generally. But up in these hills, there's a huge amount of methane stored underground in these caverns. That's how we get our gas around the United States and around the world, is gas is extracted from fracking or other means, and then pumped and stored when it's economically viable to store it in these old limestone caverns, old evacuated volumes where oil had been pumped out, and other deep underground sites, and then it's pumped out and delivered to homes when it's needed and profitable to do so. So this is Matt and Kyoko, photographed in 2016, and they had to relocate along with most of that community. He's a sound engineer and called the SoCalGas to ask them what was going on that night in it was October 26th. And so this is his recording of that, if it plays. Oops.
Good morning, Mr. Pacuco. You've entered the emergency line. May I have the nature of your emergency?
Yeah, what's the smell of gas going on outside our house all night long?
I'm not sure, sir. May I have your address, please?
Porter Ranch.
And what's it? Oh, thank you.
We're next to the SoCalGas storage facility.
Thank you. One moment. Let me go ahead and check here. Thank you so much for waiting. Okay, yes, I do show. It looks like they were releasing gas. So they are releasing gas into the air in that area. And it looks like it's going to be happening all through up until the morning.
Releasing gas and making us sick.
No, natural gas is non-toxic, sir.
What is? Why are they releasing gas?
It's just something that they do periodically.
It's just release. This is like normal stuff for them?
Yes, it's normal. They do it every now and then.
There's no problems going on up there or something leaking or something?
No, sir.
You're 100% sure of this?
Yes, I am.
So they could see that there were fire trucks coming up and emergency service vehicles. So they knew this wasn't normal. But this kind of covering is a form of making invisible the things that people are sensing. You can't see or smell methane by itself, but you can smell its odorant that's added to it, which is when you smell the smell of gas. It's actually an added gas that's used to do that. So and it was the whole thing. There was all other things mixed in too that was making them sick. So there was a long struggle the community was getting no attention from this, even though they're pets and they were getting sick from it. But finally they got the Environmental Defense Fund, EDF, to cooperate with them in getting a forward-looking infrared radiometer, a camera that shoots in the video camera that shoots in the infrared, and they began to see this, what had been otherwise invisible. You can see it in this image here. It's a screen grab. And in this was a community discussion that was in December, and Earthworks, which had one of the NGOs that had contributed to this, showed it, and you see in the screen, this is a picture of what it looks like to the naked eye, and in the background you see the image that they were projecting of what they were seeing with the infrared. So at that meeting, when this movie started to show what was happening there, and this is a tremendous sense of horror, but also relief that the community finally had sensory confirmation of what they were experiencing with their bodies. They were vomiting, and their eyes were running, and they were sick. And it was only then when, this is Hillary Lewis, one of the organizers, visit from Earthworks Action, and showed this FLIR, the forward-looking infrared radiometer imaging, and she says, you will see a black cloud. It is one or more of these chemicals, of BTEX, of methane, mercaptan, other things. So this was not something, I still don't know whether the SoCalGas had their own infrared images, but this was the first time that the public had begun to see these. And then she could say, the source of pollution is here. There's an indexical. You can point to it. This is where, from one of the wells up there, was emitting this, and that was on December 5th. So the statement of SoCalGas that this would be over by the morning of October 26, 27 was clear. It was still going absolutely strong in December, and it's local. You could see where it was. It was in a particular place. It wasn't some generic feature. And they declared a no-fly zone over the site, so you couldn't be photographed there. But EDF flew anyway and took these images.
New footage released by the Environmental Defense Fund offers the first bird's-eye infrared view of the natural gas leak at the Aliso Canyon storage facility owned by Southern California Gas Company. The leak, which has been going on since October, is invisible to the naked eye.
So this video was then supplemented by others. There were false color ones. There were ones that had music attached to it. But the simplest ones that simply showed without narration were the ones that got millions of views and began and forced the governor, Jerry Brown, to declare a state of emergency on January 6th. So this is the kind of thing that these kind of images did that the dead birds and stranded polar bears and other icons and symbols of the Anthropocene have never been able to do. There's another kind of sensing that goes on. Some of it is just us and the smell and health effects of leaks and other new leaks began to be recorded on an app that was designed by one of the Porter Ranch citizens, Andrew Crown, and you could see over time where these reports would pop up, so you could see which direction the gas was moving, and it began to be its own form of argument. So that kind of aggregated data on the health app showed this in a very direct way and added to the visual and infrared information. It was a way of making an image out of smell and bodily response. One of the satellites that had been put up to look at an Earth-pointed satellite could actually see this methane plume because it was in the infrared. And this was the first satellite image of anthropogenic methane that was produced. It's now increasingly common in satellites. There's a whole fleet of them going up, as I'll talk about in a minute. But these various forms of technology, whether it's aggregating the demographics of smell and nausea and eye tearing and other things that people were experiencing, or this forward-looking infrared radiometry or satellites, all airplane-based imagery, all of this combined to give force to the argument. The third and final site that I wanted to discuss today is the ground itself, these CAFOs, these concentrated animal feeding operations, which have taken over almost completely the production of hog in the United States, in China, in much of Europe, all the way through the developing world as well. These are boxed confinement where the animal is basically confined to the size that it is. So there's no movement at all. They never leave it. Sometimes it's called landless production of meat, although of course it has huge effects on the land. And the requirements to feed them then has transformed many areas, including the Amazon. So it has a huge effect on the land, but the sort of fantasy is that it's because it's confined and the number of square feet per animal is reduced, and it drops the price of the of hog and increasingly of cattle as well. Chickens are produced in this way almost entirely. So the kind of images that had to do with industrial animal production begins as protest. And there are protests about environmental contamination that go back certainly to Eugene Smith's famous pictures of Minamata, of mercury poisoning. Eugene Smith was severely beaten by thugs from the company, lost one of his eyes in that. And there was a cocktail waitress, Becky Sandstedt, who lived in St. Paul, and she saved up her tip money and bought a video camera, 1989 style, and began to make images of the cattle that were confined there. And those videos would then be marketed, or she would sell or give them to television stations, and you would have to get somebody to show it on television. And those were really protests about animal cruelty, which is where a lot of the protests began. Not so much environmental protests, but protests about animal cruelty. So these sorts of videos began to be posted first on television, and then as YouTube came to be used starting in earnest around 2010. It started earlier, but that's when there's a big inflection in the number of people uploading and downloading from YouTube, and had a big effect. And so that then had to change the way that some of these production facilities were seen more widely in the United States. There were also people like Rick Dove, who was a colonel in the armed forces, and he would go up in planes and photograph and then later take videos of animal production because they were destroying the rivers where that he fished on and lived on, and he became more and more interested in finding out what the sources of this was. And sometimes he would find a point source, but more often it was a diffuse source of these fields. Basically, the way you raise these huge number, 25, 50,000 animals in a confining facility, is the waste is dumped into these lagoons, and then you spray pump it onto the fields until you reach the nitrogen limit that's set by the Department of Agriculture. And you're not allowed to do it when it's raining because it washes right off into the rivers that are adjacent in the basin. But he photographed many times people doing just that. And then when there are floods, you know, it's a disaster because this is in the low-lying areas of eastern North Carolina. If you know that area, it's not much above sea level, and they flood, and you have these massive numbers of killed animals, drowned animals. But then something happens that's quite unexpected in the story of these images, and that is that after the attack of 2001, of September 11th, there was an attempt by ALEC, the animal, a conservative legislative body that would design model laws that then could be adopted one by the states. And they proposed something right after the September 11th attacks called the Animal and Ecological Terrorist Act, in which entering an animal or research facility to take pictures by photograph, video camera, or other means with the intent to commit criminal activities or defame the facility or its owner. So they wanted to have laws that would prevent this, and increasingly those laws, known as ag-gag laws, were designed to stop time-based media, because those were the things that were effective. And it was not just a simple photograph, but it was a film or a sound recording. The sound in these videos is absolutely as important as the video, as the image. On the 109th Congress in 2006, this was adopted as a law, an act to provide the Department of Justice the necessary authority to apprehend, prosecute, and convict individuals committing animal enterprise terror. And animal enterprise terror was specifically making these sorts of images or time-based media recordings of CAFOs, the concentrated animal feeding operation, the factory farms, because those then had been reclassified as critical infrastructure. So by taking these big animal production facilities and making them critical infrastructure, then photographing or filming them became as if you were photographing or filming an Air Force base, a classified facility. So it became an act of terror. So making these images started out as protest, then they became an act of terror. And there were lots of these secret videos recorded. People would get onto these CAFOs and make surreptitious recordings, and those had a big effect. And that's what these laws were designed to criminalize. And then the third phase of this was that the people started to be prosecuted as terrorists because they made these images. The first case that came up was a woman named Amy Meyer who stopped her car and started filming what was going on. It's hard to see exactly what's happening, but this tractor is pushing a calf, but it's her voice that actually is so striking.
The cow.
He's alive.
On that bulldozer.
Yes, he's alive. I think. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Let's go. Okay.
So she was indicted and brought up on charges. She was exculpated in this case, and in fact, many of these laws have been declared unconstitutional. But it was a battle. In Utah, for instance, the court concludes that Utah Code 766112 is unconstitutional, curtailing the ability to film abridged freedom of speech, violating the First Amendment. Whereas in 1951, the courts had basically said you could censor films and without damage, because based on a 1915 ruling, film was considered to be entertainment and therefore not a mode of political expression. But more recently, what's happened, partly around these debates, around these environmental filming, is that the making videos is considered to be part of self-expression and therefore covered by First Amendment protections. Part of what made that possible was a transformation from 2010 to 2020 of the coverage of number of people that had cell phones and the growth of YouTube, which just shot up starting in 2010. The combination of those two meant that people were able to share videos bypassing the television stations and networks. So that then began to shift, making these images, first, which had started out as protests, then become an act of terror, then became an act of speech, protected speech, in fact. And in 2017, the verdict came in, the Ninth Circuit. We conclude that Idaho's criminalization of misrepresentations to enter a production facility and ban on audio and video recordings of a production facility's operations cover protected speech under the First Amendment and cannot survive constitutional scrutiny. So the battle goes on. Film becomes speech, visibilities become discourses. What we thought was synchronic becomes diachronic. These become part of how we understand political discourse in general. You have these images like this that get passed around as GIFs and The Guardian. You have people, just amateurs, taking images. This is a river, the Trinity River near Dallas, and he got these images of basically blood flowing down the river from a slaughterhouse. That had a huge effect in Dallas. People begin to use drones more generally, and then their ag-gag laws are extended to block the use of drones. So it's been a back and forth. Even in 2015, Ted Cruz tried to block NASA from looking down towards the Earth for many of these environmental things. They wanted them to point outwards. Cruz, should NASA focus primarily inwards or outwards beyond low Earth orbit? Bolden, who's the administrator of NASA, said, the most important planet we study is the one we live on, Earth. 21 NASA-developed research missions orbit Earth and provide a quantitative understanding of our complex planet, its origins, and its future. But Cruz was not happy, and they tried to block that use. So there were private enterprises. This is called MethaneSat, developed in part here and at the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory. And you begin to have images. This just went up in 2024, started producing images, and you can begin to see places that are in forbidden areas, either that it's hard to get access to, like the Permian Basin in Texas and New Mexico, or in places like Turkmenistan, Morocco, and other places where up-close monitoring would have been forbidden. So this is Tropemy, it's another one. This is even another one. Turkmenistan is one of the biggest producers of anthropogenic methane. And so what you have is this new kinds of technology, surveillance videos, wellhead cams, fence line videos, drones, satellites, investigative videos that are forward-looking infrared or exposés, unfolding sequences with GIS and dynamic cartography, like the assembly and demography of sensing methane and mercaptan by your body. And this battle continues. Each move has a counter move to it, whether it's in Aliso Canyon or Deepwater Horizon or the factory farms of eastern North Carolina. So I'll end here. The sensing that we have is a mix of many modes. In astronomy, it's called multimodal astronomy. You combine gravity waves and X-rays and optical to be able to understand the thing you're looking at. For us, in understanding the environment and nature around us, it involves images, odors, sounds, tastes. There are taste tests of shrimp around the Gulf. You can't sell shrimp that tastes bad, right? If it tastes like BP oil, it's not going to be a hit on the table. So it's moving us towards a multimodal, technologically variable sensing of nature. And I want to stress that this is both top-down and bottom-up, both in the literal sense of from seafloor to space, but also a change in that we can't, whether it's the EDF launching a privately funded satellite or citizens or cocktail waitresses like Becky Sandstedt or the person from Porter Ranch, Crown, who built this app. There's been a democratization of technology, bringing in these FLIRs and mechanisms to try to approach the nature that's often not handed to us in finished representation by regulatory agencies. In fact, it's the opposite. These are the things that have driven changes in rules about offshore deep water drilling or methane storage or the conduct of CAFOs. Thank you.